Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Nick here, back with another episode of Meet the Taco Plebs. And today, I got the legendary surfer Jim on. Jim's a cool dude. I got to know him a lot better whenever he would come out every single week to Bitcoin Kindergarten, the show that me and Optimist, aka My Live in Truth, host every Wednesday. And he kept coming back, kept contributing good insight to our show, and I really appreciated that. And then over the summer at BitBlock Boom, I got the chance to meet him in person, and he was a dope dude. So I've been wanting to get him on this show for a while now, and I finally got around to it. So Jim, thank you for coming on, and I'm glad you accepted my offer to come on the show.
Oh, are you kidding? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So let's just get right into it. How did you fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole?
So like most people, I heard of Bitcoin twice before I paid attention. So it was my third touch, as they say. And it just was by random chance that I was walking my dog and listening to YouTube videos of various kinds. And YouTube will feed you things it thinks you want to see, I guess. So things that are related to other things that other people watched or whatever. And I guess the title of a TED Talk probably caught my attention because it had to do with Bitcoin and trust. And I had heard about Bitcoin. I knew it was some kind of internet money, and the idea of the concept of trust being linked to it. Nobody had explained anything to me about Bitcoin to any great extent. But that piqued my interest because of the nature of my construction company that I had set up for many years. Well, it's now over 30 years. I've had a construction company on a barrier island on the South Shore of Long Island called Fire Island, which is a summer community. And most of the year, the homes are not occupied. They're summer homes. They shut the water off. And that's the time of year when we, in the off season, when we do all the work on these homes. And I found out very quickly, or I realized very quickly, that there's a huge trust issue when somebody is hiring you to work on their home and they're not there to see it. So way back, I made sure that I never broke that trust with my customers. It's the one thing that's kept me in business. I've done virtually no advertising, and I've never been out of work because word of mouth. People just tell their friends, you got to call Jim, because I tried to, be a man of my word, follow through on my contracts, do what was expected. And there's this trust level that you figure out how to make sure you don't break it with people. And I wanted to know what Bitcoin had to do with trust. And so I listened to this TED Talk, and it was enough to pique my interest into wanting to understand how Bitcoin does this. So for me, growing up as a kid, I had a natural interest in mechanics, how things work. I used to take things apart, anything. If my mom had an appliance that was broken and she was going to throw it away, I would say, well, give me that. I need to see how it works inside, even though it didn't work anymore. So it was just a natural curiosity, sort of how I learn. I learn better when I see the mechanism of how things work, even obscure concepts like contracts. To understand what phrases mean and how they relate is to understand how the overall thing works. So it's just the sort of nature of me. I have to look into it and see how I want to open it up and see what's going on with the gears and springs inside. So for me, it was that kind of technical study that I went for first, which is probably not the normal thing, I guess, for most people, because certainly the hype is all about, the price and what it's going to be worth someday in the future. But I was, of course, excited about that, but I couldn't just jump in because of that. Like too many scams in the world, I had to kick the tires, I guess you could say. So I did my technical analysis first. I tried to find out all the information I could about that. And then again, using YouTube, you would get fed more and more content. I started seeing more and more people putting out content. Of course, lots of it was crap content, and you start to weed through it. And then you start to, hone in on the signal of the people who know what they're saying, or what seems to correlate. See, what I find is that for anything in life, you can only do so much research, and you have to trust people about, you have to get to a level of trust of different things. So Bitcoin has this ability to, like, where you don't have to trust anybody, but in order to do that, you have to go learn to code so that you could read the code, and then you could see what it does. And you don't have to trust anybody. You can put the code on your computer, compile it yourself, do all these things that computer engineers know how to do, so they don't have to trust somebody else handing it to them and say, hey, look, this is going to work fine. You could trust it. So I don't read code. So I had to trust other people who did that and who've said it worked. And I'm like, well, okay, how do I trust that guy? Well, then you listen to somebody else who says the same thing. And you start to build a web of trust of other people who they don't know you, and you don't know them other than somebody on the internet. But you just cross-reference enough stuff and you can get to a comfort level. And I hate, for anybody listening, we do this for everything in life at different levels. The amount you have to trust something is directly related to the amount of cross-referencing you need to do between people, stuff on the internet, books, anything, whatever it happens to be, for you to be satisfied that you're hearing the truth about anything. And so for me, it took months. I spent months and months, and then I was very convinced at some point I had to get some, and I was very frustrated. The price was rising because it was early, almost mid-2017, and I was really expecting the price to go up. There was a lot of hype about the price going up after the halving in 2016, and sure enough, it went all the way to almost 20 grand, and I thought I was a genius. I told everybody, oh man, this is, and then no one wanted to listen, and then it went all the way up, and then of course, as we all know, it went all the way back down to almost where I started. It didn't go. My first purchase is the lowest I ever made. It never went below that, so I'm glad I made it, even though it felt expensive at the time. But I watched it go all the way down. But on the way down in 2018, I just kept studying, and I was just getting more and more convinced the price was irrelevant to me. It was more about how many satoshis you could pile up before it went to $1 million. So that was it. It took me a while, but I just studied hard. I had a natural interest because of the nature of my business, and of course it's money, and I thought I'd make it rich. So there's a lot of incentives there if you're positioned right to want to study Bitcoin, I guess. I guess for everybody, it just takes somebody or it's the right information to be put across their radar. I told a lot of people, but I finally got plenty of people, or a handful of people, that have finally listened and bought some Bitcoin and are very happy now. But it wasn't just because of me. Something else, somebody else said something, they heard something on TV. It's that cross-referencing of trusted sources. And once enough of it gets in someone's brain, I guess it's like they get the preponderance of the evidence sort of tips, and all of a sudden they go like, I gotta look into this a little more. I can't keep ignoring this. Is too much here. Everybody has to get to that tipping point, So
yeah. So
I hope that wasn't too long.
I'm a little curious. I know you said that you like to take appliances and stuff apart to see how they work. How did you get into construction? Are you just like a really hands-on person? Like you just like building and stuff?
Well, it's kind of funny. I've always been this sort of individual. I like doing things that a lot of other people don't do. That's not directly related to construction, but I used to dig clams. I had my own boat. I was a teenager, like 17, maybe 18, right out of high school. I'm still digging clams. All my friends, there's a big bay south of where I live called the Great South Bay. And there was lots of clam beds, and it was a big industry back when I was a teenager, really big industry. And you'd go out there digging clams for, however many hours you wanted, and come back to the dock, and there was clam buyers at several docks along the South Shore of Long Island. You could sell your clams for cash. And so if you needed money, you just go out and dig some clams, and you got money that day. So it was awesome doing that, until I realized that, you could be out there working, trying to find clams, and you don't find any. You could work for hours and hours and still make no money. And I was like, I don't like this formula, because there was good days and bad days. And a friend of mine was working at a roofing company. He said, we got openings if you want a steady salary. And that's what got me into construction. I really was not planning to be in the construction business, but, I learned about roofing, and then being on construction sites, I learned about how buildings were built. And one thing led to another. I eventually started my own company, but I did do a stint in the financial services industry in my mid-20s. While working for a roofing company, the owner was nice enough to give me my own truck and a repairman job. So I wasn't on the crew every day. I would do repairs. They would give me tickets. I'd go out and do repairs. And I worked 4 days a week, and I went to college for 2 years on 2 days a week. And so I got this degree, just a basic business degree, but I ended up taking a job in an office that was, they billed themselves as financial planners. We sold a lot of insurance. We set up pension plans for people. We had annuities and mutual funds. Didn't deal directly in stocks and bonds and derivatives, things like that. But I thought, so going from construction, working my ass off, getting dirty every day, I'm like, there's people that work in suits and ties and make millions. I'm doing it wrong here. So I wanted to get into that business, like some kind of business where I didn't have to get dirty. So I did 5 or 6 years in that industry. It taught me about selling, making appointments, managing my own time. Like, I didn't have to punch a clock. They just wanted to see sales. They didn't care. So, I could, it was a unique experience because I felt sort of free. I didn't feel unique. I was a salesman, and it really didn't suit my nature. I just wanted to make money. And I was driving along one day. This is really what turned it around. This is why I started my construction company, because I enjoyed the construction. It just didn't seem glamorous enough, maybe. So I'm driving along. I was always into improving who I was. I used to listen to motivational tapes in the car, and I'm listening to guy named Brian Tracy. You can look him up, big time motivational speaker. And he's talking about, if you're a salesman, what should you sell? And he broke it down into 2 categories. He said, if you're somebody who is intellectual and likes to think about concepts and intangible things like stocks and mortgages and like what I was involved in, then maybe you should sell that kind of product if you're into that kind of intellectual stuff. If you're the kind of, and he says, if you're the kind of person who likes to work with his hands, you maybe would be better, if you're going to be a salesman, to sell a tangible product. And I literally went, no freaking way. I am selling the wrong thing. No wonder I'm not like stoked about this, like I gotta change. I gotta do something. I gotta change. And then by chance, a good friend of mine, who was actually a client of mine and knew I did construction work on the side. I was always doing side jobs because I could. People would call me that knew I could do some stuff. And so he says to me, I got these clients on Fire Island. They're sick of their contractor. Would you be interested in doing some repairs for them? And that was it. And over 30 years later, I've never left. Those people loved me so much. They told like 20 of their neighbors to hire me immediately. Just from one family. It was ridiculous. But I knew going in that I had a clean slate in this town. Nobody knew me. And all I had to do was just do the right thing. Just follow through with your obligations. Don't piss people off. Don't break the rules, and get everybody to like you. And it's not hard if you just, I don't know. It's just not that hard. I didn't find it that hard. It worked perfectly. Everybody was happy with the work I did. I kept getting passed around. I'm in this little village where everybody knows everybody. There's only like 400 homes. They're all out there in the summer, all chit-chatting at, little parties and dinners and whatever they do. And my name got passed around immediately. Like within the first year, I had 20 customers. The next year, I probably had 40 or whatever, and it just never stopped. So that's how I got into construction.
That's awesome to hear. So moving on to my next question is, how has Bitcoin changed your life? I know when I've been talking to you on Bitcoin Kindergarten and stuff, you feel like you're on like a brand new chapter of your life, and like you feel like completely reborn once you understood Bitcoin. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. All right. So, this whole individualistic nature, I've always been a sort of rebellious person against stupid rules and regulations ever since I could perceive them. And it wasn't until Bitcoin that I really understood what all the issues were and the problems were. And it's this whole central planning, top down, we're going to tell everybody what to do, government style that I grew up with in my whole life. That's very oppressive and unnatural. Some humans ruling over everybody else, which is all it is. Government is just a bunch of people. It wasn't until Bitcoin that I really could see it clearly, because I learned about money. Bitcoin taught me about the history and the nature of the tool called money. And they don't want you to know this in public schools because they manipulate the money to their advantage and to our disadvantage. And so, as soon as I saw that, it was just like a light bulb, like no wonder X, Y, and Z has been this way for so many years. And of course, like few people not few people, I'm older than a lot of people in this space, right? So I got all these extra years of bullshit I've dealt with. I watched a lot of stuff happen, and much of it you just feel very helpless about, and you just assume other people know what they're doing, and you trust so many people you really shouldn't trust, especially government and media. And, like I was completely blue-pilled statist. I used to vote. I watched the TV news every night, like, oh, I got to find out what the truth is out there in the world. Meanwhile, 90% of it's probably not true, so whatever. I think it's gotten much worse in the last few years, but, who knows what I was fed. I certainly know I wasn't taught about money. So once I learned about that, there's a big peripheral community of, what do you call that? A Venn diagram, overlapping disciplines, come into play with people that are interested in Bitcoin. So health is a big one, as you're aware of. There's a big carnivore community that's connected with the Bitcoin community. I'm one of them. I learned about that type of diet through various people in Bitcoin space. And then like anything else that piques my interest, I went and did my own research. I found people outside of Bitcoin that were verifying the same stuff, changed my diet, lost weight, feel great, surf more, like unbelievable. Bitcoin changed my life. It improved my health. It improved my money. It improved my outlook on how society works, my position in life. Just so many things. They're all connected. Austrian economics, as you're aware of, the ideas of, true capitalism, something we really don't have. We have a crony capitalist system where government sets a whole bunch of rules that make the playing field unlevel. Just the fact that a bunch of parasites can go around and make other people wear masks and close down private businesses is blowing my mind in 2020. I never thought growing up, I always felt like people would not only get freer, they'd get smarter and learn from the past. It's almost like the past is getting erased. People are clueless. It's sad. I've heard this recently. You could ask teenagers, who was Adolf Hitler? They don't know. They're not being told what happened. It's not that long ago. It's really mind-boggling. And this is because I'm going on and on here. I don't mean to take up the whole night, but the whole narrative is because the money is controlled by a few people, and that trickle-down effect of who controls the money, they basically control the politicians and the narrative of the mainstream media and everything. And unfortunately, it's been bad for society, and Bitcoin can turn that around. But it takes a lot. Like I said earlier, I did a lot of research to get over that hump, and most people are still resistant to it. And so it's an uphill battle. I think Bitcoin will fix society in many, many ways once more people understand it and adopt it. But that, to answer your question, it's changed my life in a lot of ways. I have a whole bunch of new, awesome friends all over the world. Some of my longtime friends are no longer such great friends because we just can't get along anymore. It's crazy. When I see people that think I'm nuts for not wearing a mask, it's hard for me to be around those people, even if they're nice people and I've always liked them. I can't handle the cognitive dissonance of some people just accepting what the state tells them. So it's tough. It's tough, getting red pilled by Bitcoin. But in the end, I feel more aligned with who I am and with the world and with nature. Oddly enough, if you could say it that way, Bitcoin to me is like a sort of first principle. So when you align with first principles, things line up. Michael Saylor talks about it. You can't fight physics. Money is this unique tool that humans have, and when you got the right one, you have to align with that. And that's how I see Bitcoin. We have the best money ever. And to align with it, it forces you to really examine who you were and whether or not your paradigms were correct. And so I feel like I hear other people say this in various ways. So I know I'm not the only one. Bitcoin changes your perspective and you become different. It's just, I don't think you can stop it. So.
Awesome. I love that. What is the coolest thing about Bitcoin to you, in your opinion?
Oh, the coolest thing. Wow. I guess how it works. I just think it's fascinating how I'm going to like tie this into some current events, right? We have crazy NFT tokens being made, it's a whole weird concept. People think you can just make a blockchain do whatever you want, or like everything's going to be on the blockchain, and it just doesn't work that way. What's so fascinating about Bitcoin in general, the way it was built is, there's this distributed network, as many people know, of lots of computers that talk to each other. But the system is like I want to call it a closed loop system, because in many ways it is, but it does tie to the external world in only one way. And it's the only real way that anybody's been able to find to tie this digital realm, this blockchain with cryptography that makes Bitcoin work, to the real world. And the fact that it was tied to the real world through electricity, through mining, right? I can get into all that, but to simplify it, the digital realm, the control, coordination, distribution, and movement of digital files with signatures that are essentially passwords, right? So this system of moving these digital files around is linked to the physical world through electricity, through the use of electricity, which indirectly, because somebody's willing to spend electricity to create the new Bitcoin, that then gives it some actual real world value. Like it's not just thought of made up value. Somebody actually spent money or time, in this case, electricity, and buying computers and hooking them onto the internet, all this stuff. And it creates this link to the digital realm where new Bitcoins are created for the expenditure of real world effort, right? So, and it's done without anybody having to authorize it or verify it. You don't need a third party to say, yes, it took place. So the example of saying tying your real estate to the blockchain. So you can make a certificate that represents the real estate, put it on the blockchain or a blockchain, and there it is, sits there. But in order to enforce that in the real world, there's a house sitting on a piece of property somewhere. And if you own it, you got the private key. What if you lose it? What if somebody gets it somehow and says, well, now I own the house? So like we have real world mechanisms to prevent somebody from doing that. And that's the only way. You have this real world thing that you're saying is controlled by a private key on a blockchain, but how are you going to enforce that without somebody coming along and enforcing it, like a third party, like a government? That's why we have titles and stuff like that. But with Bitcoin, it's just spent electricity. It's actually already gone once the credit is given for it. So there is nothing in the real world to go and enforce. You know what I mean? It already took place, but you took that effort and brought it into the digital realm and tied it to these files that we call Bitcoin. And what everybody else is trying to do with all these other blockchains and all these other fancy things that's going to happen because of these other blockchains, and all they can do is the same thing: move digital files around and tie them to the real world with electricity, which gives them value, which makes them be like money. But as we all know, there is only one winner in the world of money. And so this is why Bitcoin's going to win and all the rest are not. And, it's just, to go back to answer your question, what fascinates me about Bitcoin is the way it works. It's absolutely freaking fascinating. And I encourage anybody to dig into it and learn it. You'll just be amazed. It's a fascinating thing. I don't know. Is that good enough?
Yeah, that's good. One thing I wanted to touch on is I like how you brought up I remember Dirt Gigi saying this a few months back, and I've been thinking about it ever since. It's just something simple as, if you want to obtain Bitcoin, you literally have to trade something of value for it. You can't really get free Bitcoins anymore unless, well, I guess now you can do it through Fold app or, try Lolly. But overall, if you really want a good amount of Bitcoin, you can't get it for free. You gotta, trade something of real world value for it. And that, like you said, it automatically just gives value.
Well, in terms of you or I trying to acquire some, we need to pay somebody else who who created them indirectly. So somebody spent their time and energy to make a Bitcoin when we, as you and I both know, every 10 minutes, roughly every 10 minutes, a block is created, and 6.25 new Bitcoin are credited to somebody in the world. And that somebody had to spend electricity to get it. And once you understand how the system works, you understand what I mean by that. But the point is that somebody had to spend money to create Bitcoin. Therefore, they had some value. Early on, the value was very, very low. But now that the demand is so high, the value for every brand new Bitcoin is much, much higher. But the same basic amount of work happens in the mining space. So once the miner lets go of those Bitcoin and somebody else has them, they then won't part with them without an exchange of some value. So they retain their value from the beginning. Or what we've seen and what we continue to expect to see is they will go up in their value or their purchasing power. That is, somebody who holds one will want more of your value in exchange for it as the future goes out, because the demand will keep going and the supply will not. It will cap out. At least we know there's a strict limit. So although we continue to create new Bitcoin roughly every 10 minutes, and that will continue to happen for almost another 100 years. Ultimately, there's still a supply cap, and there's, as you know, as many listeners of this podcast know, there's a diminishing supply issuance. So although we're creating 6.25 new Bitcoin this year, in 3 years, that's going to get cut in half, and 4 years later, cut in half again. So there's some really unique features about Bitcoin, going back to what I said earlier about it, why it's so fascinating. All these things create this feedback loop of higher demand. And so that whoever owns or controls these Bitcoins is likely to be able to acquire more additional value from a future person that wants it. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
Wonderfully said. Moving on to my second to last question is, what are you most looking forward to in the Bitcoin space?
Most looking forward to the price going really high, really fast. That would be good. There's a lot of things. I guess generally I'm most looking forward to the freedom I feel it's going to give me to enjoy the rest of my life. I guess that's the best way, because I envision Bitcoin affecting my life in so many ways. The traveling I want to do, the things I want to help create with other Bitcoiners, the things I want to stop doing. I want to retire from the business I've been running all these years, and I want to sell most of my stuff so I can be more mobile. So Bitcoin gives me this unique outlook on my future that I didn't expect to have, but now that I have this new perspective on how my future can unfold, it's very exciting. There's so much to look forward to. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I that's one thing I also think about all the time, just the freedom that Bitcoin gives you. And you see some of the people on Twitter who are already retired, and like they do whatever they want whenever they want. And I just look at that and think that's what I want.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin's going to give it to us.
We got friends that seem to do whatever they want whenever they want, and they're not retired. They own Bitcoin. None of us really knows how much the other has, which is appropriate. But I see some of my friends that are traveling quite a bit. Some of them, Katie, Ben, Dread. They seem to pop up all over the freaking world. Another week later, they're hanging out somewhere else. I see them on Zoom. Just what was last week? They were out there with American Huddle out in Las Vegas, and they chimed into Dirtbag Fridays from a casino. Like, we're all just like, what are you guys? They're drinking, partying in a casino. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. So Bitcoiners, it's interesting. I see a whole cult. That's a bad word in this space. People think we're already a cult. No, just a movement of people enjoying more freedom, traveling more, sovereign individuals, not necessarily tying themselves down to one place forever. I see that as going to be something that's big. And I didn't expect my life to be one of a type of nomad, but I used to travel all the time. I loved it, and I settled down. I figured I would just stay in one place forever, and now I'm not going to, and I don't care. I can't wait. there's such a big world to see. Like, why stay in one place for most of your life? I don't know. If you don't have to, right? So I'm hoping I won't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to travel a lot more, outside of the U.S. especially. I've only been outside of the U.S. one time, and I liked it. I love the U.S., but I want to travel and see like what else is out there in the world. But as you know, right now with all the authoritarian governments and strict COVID lockdowns for literally no reason, it doesn't look like I'll be able to do that anytime soon.
It's frustrating. I agree with you. It doesn't look like a lot of us are not going to be able to do what we want to do anytime soon. But there's a lot of information that dispels much of the narrative around this whole COVID thing, and I just hope that information seeps out into society enough that people start pushing back, and they don't. I don't want to see the world where every airline and every government requires a vaccine passport, because that's really going to make it hard to travel. You're going to either have to drive or take a freaking boat, because if you can't get on an airplane without getting some drugs pumped into you that you might not want, that's not right. But, I hope it doesn't go that way. But, boy, it looks like it's headed that way, and that's really scary. So that's probably the negative side of my future outlook, is like, I want to do all this traveling and I want to see the world and whatnot. And I feel like, wow, I might not even be able to the extent I used to. I used to travel pretty freely. I'll tell you, I started traveling long enough back where they used to let you smoke on airplanes. And I hated it because I never smoked cigarettes. And, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm in this tube with a bunch of people and they're smoking. But they stopped it, obviously. But, I guess I'm pretty old. I hope that dates me, I guess. Whatever. What else you got for me, Nick?
I got one more question for you. And
sure.
and you can get as bull-tard as you want, but what is your price prediction for the end of this year, 2021, and your price prediction for when we're at 2030 in 9 years?
All right. So I know most people would take it to mean you want to know what you think a Bitcoin can be exchanged for U.S. dollars, because that's how we price our lives, in U.S. dollars, which are a joke, because they're not an accurate representation of what true value represents, because it's too manipulated. So, but that is the unit that we're going to use for at least this year, and probably for the next 9 or 10. I don't think the U.S. dollar is going to die in the next decade, but I think it's on its way out. So this year, I have no personal way to know. I have to go by what I hear other smarter people than me talk about. And I see a consensus of anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year. And after watching it run up, to over 60 in only a couple months, that does not seem impossible at all. So I'm pretty encouraged to think that the value of each Bitcoin could be up in that range. And so I do expect it to go up there. It's hard to say what type of correction we might see, because it's up and down on its way up, as we all know. So we'll see. There's a lot of talk about it not having a major correction this time, because this time is different. More people are seeing it, and people that are expecting the correction might get tricked out of their Bitcoin because they think they're going to sell high and go buy again low, and it doesn't go low, and they just oops. Yeah, so it could just keep going right past 300,000 for the next 10 years and go up to 10 million, 100 million, who knows. By 2030, it's going to be over 1 million. There's no question. In my mind, isn't that what the year you asked me, 2030? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
2030.
Okay. Yeah. So by the end of this year, a minimum of 100, or at least we'll see 100, even if it pulls back. I think we'll see 100, maybe as high as 300, and we'll pull back, whatever. But 10 more years from now, it's got to be way past 1 million. I could see easily 5 or 10 million for a single Bitcoin in 10 more years. I mean, look at where it went from. Look at where it went from 2009 when it was launched. The earliest price I can find for a tradable value of a Bitcoin is about 1,600 Bitcoin for $1. So when you consider that's like some like 9 or 10 million% increase, or it's an insane amount of percentage increase. But if you take 1,600 right now, and the price is down since it's high, but 54,000 right now, roughly, you're talking about $86 million for a $1 investment 12 years ago. That's freaking mind-boggling. 86 million for $1. Right now, I don't think we're ever going to see that kind of exponential growth in a single person's lifetime, certainly not in 12 years. But could we see a $1 million or a $10 million Bitcoin from 50,000? Absolutely. That's like nothing compared to $1 to 86,400,000 to be exact. So I hope that's not too bearish for you.
No, that was perfect. That was the perfect way to end off this interview. So, Jim, I want to thank you again for coming on. Before we head off, is there any shout outs or anything you want to show before we head out?
Oh, thanks. I've trained myself to remember to do this every time now. Yeah, man, I got to surf the Long Island. I got to shill the Long Island Surf Park. My friend Chris and I and his son have been working on this thing for about 5 or 6 years, and we actually just got site plan approval, official site plan approval. We had preliminary, but they're saying we can build a wave pool on this site. We have a site, piece of property. Now we're working on permits. We got several different government agencies that have to approve different things about what we're going to build, but it's moving right along, and we're hoping to build the first wave pool on Long Island, and we're hoping to build one of the best in the world. We have an unbelievable fluid dynamics expert that's our pool designer, who's also a surfboard manufacturer in San Diego. So he knows surfing and he knows water and reefs and all this stuff. And yeah, it's been really wild. They even, because I'm a builder, they even asked me to build a test tank, which we've been running tests in for about a year of different parameters about the pool, there's all kinds of different features that make the waves. So we've been testing different wave generating mechanisms, also different wave dampening mechanisms, so that after waves are produced in the pool, we want to calm the water down quickly so that the next wave comes out in smooth water. So we've got some innovative stuff that's involved that isn't even out there. We're inventing stuff, which is really cool. Like, I feel like I'm like a pioneer in a weird way. So it's very exciting for me, and everybody I tell about it loves it, because we can make little 1-foot waves and teach anybody to surf. And we've in our tank, we've made the equivalent in real world wave size of 12-foot waves. And our tagline is 7 foot and hollow every day. So if we can make head high waves every day, we'll be happy. So that's my shill. Everybody should go buy Bitcoin, invest in their future. It's really important technology. Study it, whatever you got to do, but don't just get off zero, right? Just don't own none. And come visit the Long Island Surf Park when it's open in hopefully a year. We still got a little bit of a road ahead of us, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Awesome. So if you guys made it to the end of this interview, leave a like. Go follow Jim on Twitter. The link to his Twitter will be down in the description below. And I'll see you guys next week with a brand new guest. Peace.
Knowing auto invitation, hold on to the pavements. Hate me, love me, for grateful recognition. Heard the man's like